dark matter to the cosmic speed-up. From the beginning of the solar system to multicellular life, our journey begins before human records, libraries, and the written language. Before our human ancestors looked to the sky and questioned the stars in the dawn of contemplative thought and symbolism. Before our oldest known ancient records of music, abstract art, social systems, and databases. Billions of years before humans, dinosaurs, and microcosmic cellular life existed on this blue planet. Supernova causes the nebula to rotate with an angular momentum. The protoplanets begin to form orbiting the nebular center. Gravitational collapse from a molecular cloud gives birth to the sun as everything around the orb flattens into a disk forming planets, moons, and asteroids. Ecosystems of South Africa in the year of 2016. These ambient recordings were conducted in carefully picked environments all over South Africa, from the ancient mountains along the Western Cape, the Rising Star Cave, and underground water worlds north of Johannesburg, to the barren valleys, crystal still lakes, and uncultivated wild forests, all brimming with the immeasurable energy flows of life forms expressing their conscious existence. Begins in a devastatingly barren sense of the fragility of existence against the surrounding void perpetrated by the deafening roar of Poseidon's empire, an incredible force of the planet's oceans, deeply humbling and demonstrating nature's awesome and completely brutal indifference. May well have shaped the primordial atmosphere and the first ocean. A multi-dimensional pool that transported existence seemingly out of thin air onto planet Earth. It is within this first eon, Hadean, that the oldest known zircon crystals and rocks covered the Earth dating back to 4.4 billion years ago. Rocks which we now have the technology to implement as the beacons, permitting our mind's eye to time travel almost all the way back of the very beginning of these great mysteries of our ancient planetary past. Signals of energy flows from thriving ecosystems of mussels, urchins, algae, and innumerable species of fungi. We now begin to magnify the focus of our recordings under the lens of the RNA world theory. Of how life began on planet Earth. DNA may be simply interpreted for our purposes here as recorded data of life's recipes, while complex arrays of RNA and protein molecules read these recipes and utilize them as instructions for self-replication. Perhaps self-replicating RNA from a kind of molecule known as ribozyme laid the founding blocks to more stable growth and replacement from DNA. I hit record and listened to the sound of a sea urchin floating listlessly in a still pool. My esteemed colleague, Richard Marshall, his interest peaks and remarks how the DNA of the sea urchin is surprisingly similar to humans. Early life struggled in a highly difficult environment, and with the change into an oxygen-rich atmosphere brought on a crucial development from single cells into multicellular forms. Eventually, the planet dropped into a severe ice age known as the Snowball Earths, which lasted up until the Cambrian explosion 580 million years ago. Octopus unfortunately finds itself swept ashore and trapped in a wedge of water as a marine biologist, accompanied by his children, make their way to the scene for a swift rescue. The biologist, with years of developed keen skills, gently soothes the creature to unlatch from the rocks. Increases by 6% while the core of the Earth cools. Around 2 billion years into the Earth's history, the first proto-mitochondrion was formed. Perhaps the smaller cells acted as parasites, infiltrating the larger cells and using oxygen, gained energy from the waste products of the larger cells. The earliest known example of symbiosis. These cells eventually became dependent upon each other, and and as a whole have come to be considered as a single organism. Moving through some mountainous terrain, climbing onwards and upwards in a camouflaged jeep as the sun sets into purple and violet nostalgic hues until we reach such an apex of mesmerizing heights. A creek inhabited by crocodiles. The still water cuts like smooth glass to the gliding gigantic tail and glimmer of two hungry eyes. The Nile crocodile treads in and out underwater like a silent magician. A calculating and intelligent predator, as well as the second largest extant reptile in the world. The crocodile feigns oblivion while aware of our every movement, patiently waiting its newly spotted potential snacks to lose just enough focus before it makes a move. Crocodiles are an offshoot of the archosaurs, the ruling lizards with over 200 million years of crocodile evolution under their multicellular, scaly belt. 700 million years ago, fungi and plants reached the edges of the oceans and colonized the land. Brave exploratory anthropods ventured forth and evolved as early as 500 million years. Fins evolved into limbs, and the first tetrapods lifted their heads out of the water and breathed the oxygen-rich air above. These creatures could spend their whole lives above the water, but would eventually return to lay their eggs, marking the origin of amphibians. Middle life, which boasts the impressive evolution of dinosaurs into the Jurassic period, is also haunted by the most severe extinction event in our fossil records. Over 95% of the planet's species were wiped out, including the dinosaurs, and within that 5% are ancestors of the hominids, virtually defenseless creatures hiding in trees in comparison to their ruling lizard kings. All intertwining along the timeline of the most ancient history of our planet. apes gained the ability to walk upright. Suddenly, their brain size developed extremely rapidly. Our human ancestors, the Homo genus, appeared onto the stage of the planet's life expansions. Surrounded by a tower of giraffes grazing in a state of delicate tranquility, I could feel the perplexing gaze from these magnificent creatures eyeing me with a peaceful level of caution. My movements and thoughts seemed to be outputting a transmission to their group database, registering an identity and function to their mind's hive. Nature's login and password protection required to be either accepted into the system or considered an error. As I focus out of my admiration towards them and back to the project at hand, I move the recorder in position to sample the organic sounds in their delicate fortress of rest and calm. Even the most subtle motion of raising my microphone and pointing it towards them results in an immediate change of energy to the atmosphere. The calm and tranquility has been disrupted by nothing more than a sudden alteration in my intentions and the mere motion of an arm. I can't help but ask myself, are these creatures so deeply in tune to their environment through a collective sensitivity that the very act of shifting my purpose from docility and calm to extracting energy and information from them is enough for their evolutionary tract of defenses to send out a red flag? They peek their heads up, look at me with absolute silent intensity, then at each other, and almost in an instant begin to trot off with a keen sense of security reflex in giant, majestic, galloping motions. Excavating downwards through the cradle of humankind, listening to the sonic blueprints of the ancient rising star caves and beyond. We are in a site located northwest of Johannesburg consisting of complex limestone caves, surrounded by subsonic frequencies and not recently discovered unknown extinct species, known as the Homo naledi. The word naledi means star in the Sotho-Tswana languages, thus chamber of stars.
Neanderthals were the first humans to show early signs of spirituality by burying their dead. This seeming ritualistic behavior can also be identified as a survival and instinctual development of adaptation. Tethered in symbolic and conceptual layers and layers which run so deep that neither the surface nor the bottom can be easily spotted. Today's modern civilization. Societies stirred the initial ingredients of specialized occupations. The invention of writing, the ability for record storing, libraries of data and information in its first and foremost forms, the gateways and bunkers of knowledge exponentially expanding, and with it the transmission of information and power. Massive sea change in human behavior and an exodus out of Africa, which led to the migration of the planet and exponential human expansion from 2000
to the billions of humans existing today. Abstract and contemplative thought exploded into our history and became pivotal anchors to our identity. To think that there exists no concrete evidence of abstract art for millions of years in our ancestors' evolution until about 50,000 years ago. Could these clues and questions be a thread we're following in our investigation to understand ourselves, and with it, our delicate yet extraordinarily complex evolution in the world? These traces, a microscopic window into these striking, ever-expanding mysteries of outer space, from the beautiful and preciously historic landscapes of our species' evolution in South Africa, on this time safari.